Howdy. Welcome to my run cast. So, I ran home the other day, made my last run cast, turned off the comments, and then I actually got really sick. Well, not really sick. I got sick enough that I had to stay home. So I've been home for the past 2 days. I took another day off today from training. One, because I don't want to get people sick, but two, because I just honestly am not feeling great yet. So I'm running now. It's my first run, just to kind of like warm up the engine again before I start training. Tomorrow, everything should be fine, but in these 2 days that I've been home, one was a normal day off. So not a whole thing. I've been watching a lot of Olympics. I watched the Olympics growing up, but I only really watched gymnastics. Like, I only really cared about women's gymnastics. I've probably caught a little bit of like track and field, just because that's a really big part of it. But I didn't even like Winter Olympics. Like, I really only was interested in gymnastics. And I didn't do gymnastics as a kid, but there were these very small, very athletic young girls that were the team. I'm talking about like 1996. I'm talking about like the Dominique years. Marciano and Dawes, those were like my idols. And I wasn't their age yet. I was younger than them. So I didn't realize that at like 14 and 16 years old, they were children, because they were older than me. So they seemed like, you know, oh wow, that would be so, like, I look up to them kind of thing. I was watching this documentary that Peacock has made about 96, which was kind of like one of the big years of inclusion of women in the Olympics, and how women kind of didn't get the credit that they deserve for how much they played a part in those years, or in that year rather. And so that has Carrie Strutt, of course, and that's the year I'm talking about. They are so much children. Like, now that I'm an adult, looking at them at like 14 and 16 years old, I'm like, these are children. Like, they're so little, and their bodies are so different from what gymnasts look like now. Gymnastics itself looks really different now. There's much more to do with like power. The moves are so dynamic. It's really incredible. And I'm not saying it wasn't incredible back in the 90s. Those were absolutely athletic, incredible gymnasts and athletes back then, but it's just a different thing now. And I love that the team is like the oldest team we've ever had, with an average age of 22. Like, I see a lot more athletes in all of the different events who are older than what seemed to be the age back in the day, which means that the kind of longevity of athletes is increasing, which is very cool. But Kevin and I were watching like the high jump, because it was on before we were going to watch the 100, 200 meter kind of thing, because I'm like tragic for Sha'Carri. I love her. They say Sha'Carri in the broadcast that I'm watching. I've always said Sha'Carri, so I'm sorry that I don't know which one it is. I love her. She's incredible. But it was so amazing to see how different all the bodies for all the different athletes are. Like, we're watching boxing because it's, one, analogous to what I do, but two, because there are some Thai women fighting that I want to watch. And like, the bodies for amateur boxing are like, I don't know, they just like look like amateur boxing. They're kind of like, some tall, some small. Some of them look like really what is the word? Lean and like shredded. Nobody's really like bulky. There's one guy, like a Cuban fighter, who like, he's an amateur fighter and he's amazing, but he totally just looks like what a professional fighter now would look like. But then everyone else is just kind of like, you know, whatever. You look at like the archers, the way the archers' bodies are, everyone in track and field, for high jumpers, everyone looks like a 6 foot tall model. They're so lean, and it makes sense because you have to like launch yourself into the air and like just get a lot of height, which like the gymnasts are doing too, but it's more like directly vertical, whereas these ones are trying to go vertical and over and kind of like drape themselves, so the length kind of helps. And then you look at like the women's hammer throw. I was really into. These women are so big, like they are so powerful and strong. And I'm sitting here watching this and I'm like, how come female superheroes don't look like that? Like, that gives an impression of power. That gives an impression of strength. Or like, that woman could fucking wreck you, as opposed to like the kind of mostly skinny but like a little bit defined body that we see of most female superheroes is like really not impressing its idea of power on you. Male superheroes look pretty powerful. Like they look like they lift stuff up. Like they look pretty strong. But something that I got like really excited about was like all these different bodies, and you could see either the sport kind of selects for that kind of body. Like it makes sense that you'd have to be really tall for this. It totally makes sense that Simone Biles kind of messed up on the lower bar of the uneven bars, and because she's so short, her feet didn't touch the ground, which would have been a really big deduction. But it was great that she's short. Like she got a huge advantage off of that for that, but she wouldn't have an advantage in like the high jump or the long jump being that small. And then you have like just enormous men and women doing like the shot put or the hammer throw or the javelin. I guess javelin, those people aren't that big. They kind of are along the same as like the track runners. But then like the longer the distance, the more thin and lean the runner looks. Whereas like Sha'Carri is just fucking like, her body is just so perfect. Like it's so symmetrical and strong and amazing. And that's what the runners at that distance kind of all look like. Like they've got the big muscles in their legs to really propel them a shorter distance. It's like, it's so interesting to see this. And then I'm also really excited because I never paid attention to this when I was younger watching the Olympics. I was just young, so I didn't care about these things. And then I didn't pay attention to the Olympics for the longest time in the middle years. I was like in high school and college and just didn't care. But this is the first time I've actually noted, like, I have to look up what these initials are for the countries that these people come from. And it's a country I've never even heard of. It's like an archipelago off a coast of Africa that I've literally never heard of. It's like, they're being represented in the world stage. This is really beautiful. Like, I've never been moved by the Olympics in that way before. And I was really excited by the, like, visible mental work that you can see with athletes now. I made a video about this today because I was watching it. But there's this Australian high jumper, Olis, I think is her name. I can't remember it now. I say it in the video. But she was writing in her mental training book at the event, like between jumps, and she was reading it when it wasn't her turn. Like she was just totally, it was like totally visible, and it's very present in what she was doing. I was so inspired and impressed by this. And then because I speak English, maybe I could read it on other athletes, but I don't speak those languages. The American gymnastics team, I could see their affirmations before they would do something. Like I could see Suni being like, okay, let's go. Like I could see her mouth, let's go, before she was starting a routine. You can see how they gather themselves. As I was watching the high jumpers, these women would do certain gestures, or even there was this Australian woman who had like a certain kind of like strut that she would start her run with when she was like sprinting towards her marks. It's like all these things that people do as athletes is now much more like visible. And I loved the presence of that kind of like mental training and kind of that part of the game being so visible in these games. And then the last part, I turned the comments off in my last video, and I stand by that. I'm hoping to not have to turn off the comments in this video, but something that I've noticed, and I think this is something worth talking about, I think it's really important, is that in these games, and again, I didn't pay really close attention to the Olympics other than gymnastics growing up. I haven't really paid attention to them a lot now. Look at these flowers though. Colors in Thailand seem like that shouldn't be a real color, but it is, and it's amazing. Dogs are trailing off in a second. Alright, so something that I've noticed a lot in these Olympics is manicures. So like, I was astonished that the gymnasts have long manicured nails, because I'm like, wouldn't that be difficult with like the apparatus? But apparently it's not. Like they're totally landing really well, and actually Jordan Childs actually said that having long nails helps her technique because she doesn't want to break them, so she lands much better as a way to like preserve her manicure, which I thought was kind of cute. And then you have like Andrade, who's just absolutely amazing. Gymnasts always put like sparkle, they put like glitter in their hair and stuff. Like this is something that when I was growing up in the 90s with these children gymnasts, they had like glitter hairspray and stuff. They put like glitter on their faces a little bit, something like that. But like Andrade looks like she stepped off the set of Euphoria. Like she has amazing eyeshadow that matches her leotard all the time. The Italian team was very like fashionable, very beautiful with what they were doing with their makeup. They also had really nice nails. Almost all of the track athletes, not so much in the hammer throw, probably because of the way that you use your hands in that, but like Sha'Carri has amazing nails. Lots of the high jumpers had amazing nails. They were making something about this swimmer with these yellow nails. Some idiots were like, this is an advantage in the water. So you're like swimming with your nails. I don't know what that's talking about. But here's my point. Here's why I'm talking about all of this like false lashes, false nails, manicures, how they're doing their makeup, all these different things. The reason this to me is really beautiful and actually really important and part of something that's very needed for feminism is that right now there's so much arguments going on in these Olympics that have gotten completely ridiculous about what a man and what a woman are. And I'm seeing people talk about like no woman would have that physique of a fighter who has fewer muscles than I do. Like I have more muscle mass than the women they're pointing at being like, that's a man's body. And I'm like, fucking what? Like, have you seen women? Like women are incredibly strong. There are women who are like, you know, power lifters and bodybuilders who just get incredible muscle mass. But like there was this Bulgarian boxer who was like really defined, really muscular, but she had like a ponytail, so like nobody made a thing about it. And when you have these athletes who are doing these kind of girly feminine things, because a lot of what this harsh division of like men are like this and women are like this in the patriarchy, a lot of this is misogyny and it's anti-feminine, like it's an attack on femininity. When you have athletes who are dominating, who are doing really well in their events with manicured nails and makeup and false eyelashes and lipstick and all of these different things, having femininity and dominating in sport occur in the same space, it takes away this tendency that people have to associate sport proficiency and sport dominance with masculinity. That's not masculinity. Being fast is not masculine. Being strong is not masculine. Being skilled is not masculine. Like, it is not anti-feminine to have all of those things. And so I think it actually really helps women like me who don't wear makeup, who don't present as super feminine, or women even more so than me who might look more masculine, who might present more masculine, who are being called a man, who don't need to be or want to be called a man just because of muscles or just because of speed or just because of power, any of these things, because all those things are now taking place in women who are presenting very feminine, very girly, wearing the makeup, presenting in a way that makes them feel good. They feel good doing these athletic things, and it makes them feel better to have these feminine cues going on at the same time. That helps all women. That helps in a very like feminist, strong way. And it's a problem when you say that you're only a woman if you look like this. It's a problem if you say that you have to look like that. But when you have that presentation, dominating in sport, being strong, being skilled, being aggressive, being all of these things, this helps people stop being such assholes and talking about how you're a man if you're fast or strong or, you know, don't look a certain way. So that was really cool for me. Like, I thought that was really beautiful, and I really enjoyed seeing that through so many different sports in the Olympics. And they're not over yet, so there's more of that to see. And I think that it's really relevant to a lot of the discussions that are just being really out of hand about the Olympics this year. And it's cool. So very, very proud of, I think this is the first year that women have made up 50% of the athletes, which is kind of incredible that in 2024, like, it's taken that long for women to have that much representation. But it's also really cool to me that there are all these things that people just don't think about when they talk about, like, again, this is the same sexism when they talk about like fairness and like disequality between men and women, and they're like, oh, if you have like even this little bit of masculinity, like, look, look at me. I look like a woman. You would know I'm a woman. When Kevin shoots me with his telephoto lens, which is what you use when you shoot sports, it flattens my face out, flattens my features, and I can look quite masculine in some of the photos that he takes with that lens. I'm aware of this. This is what is being used to photograph the women in the Olympics, and they're selecting photos where some women look more masculine than they look in real time when you're like watching video of them. And so having representation on both sides of those is important. Acting as though having any kind of muscle means that you have elevated levels of testosterone. I've had blood work. I don't have elevated testosterone, and yet I'm very muscular. This does not mean that you're a man to have muscles. And you can totally have like full makeup and nails and lashes and things like this and still be amazingly dominant. The advantages or disadvantages that they put on women in order to make it fair for women, because women are like, what do they call it? A protected class. This can't end at just who you allow to be in the women's class, and this doesn't end at kind of policing femininity. This year, 2024, is the first year that they've had childcare at the Olympic Village available. That is making things fair for women. That is looking at actual things that make things fair for women so that they can do their best in their sport under these circumstances, way more than, you know, what someone's muscle mass disparity between like what they would be if they were 5 feet shorter kind of thing. I don't know. It's ridiculous. That's amazing to me that they have childcare at the Olympic Village and that women are presenting and feeling really good in lots of iterations all throughout the Olympics. And so that's what I wanted to talk about, because that's what I'm thinking about on this run. And I think it's worth thinking about. I think it's really cool. And I hope that that inspires other people to think about this too. That it's not a war about like you have to look like this in order to be an athlete, or you should look like that in order to be an athlete, or you have to look like this or act like that or look like this in order to be a woman or a man or any of those things. There's this little girl. She's like 13 years old and she's a Muay Thai fighter. And she puts up videos. She had this video of her like sparring a boy in her gym or something, and she had pink gloves. And some adult man, like an adult man with a fully formed brain, you would assume, commented, "Why do you have pink gloves? You're a fighter." And so, like, pink and fighter just can't go together. That's why this like makeup and nails thing to me is really important at this very, very high level of sport, where women are dominating and doing really, really well and presenting in a way that they want to present. It is not that you have to be this way in order to be an athlete, or you have to be that way in order to be a woman. It really should be all of it together. So hopefully that makes some people who might not have thought about that, or who might actually kind of dismiss women who look like that when they go present in athletic settings, like women who wear makeup into the ring, women who present themselves as very feminine, can also be and are also, not just can also be, but and are also incredible athletes, because those things are not mutually exclusive. So that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm talking about. Cheering everyone.